We must bring the fight to them.
Hey everybody, this is Harrison with LV1 Gaming, reviewing Ubisoft's Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Frontiers of Pandora is a massive success, and pun intended because it was developed by Massive Entertainment, who was responsible for the Division series. Frontiers of Pandora is one of the most spectacular open worlds I think I've ever explored in a game. At every turn there's a screenshot-worthy vista, a fun way to parkour to your next waypoint, or plenty of diverse encounters and open world activities to stumble upon. At first glance, it's pretty easy to label this as James Cameron's Far Cry Blue Edition, but Frontiers of Pandora achieves so much more than that. Set in the same timeline as the movies, the story unfolds on the Western Frontier, a previously unseen part of Pandora. You assume the role of a young Na'vi from the Sarantu clan, which was supposedly wiped out, with the humans saying they rescued the young Na'vi, and you get placed or raised in a special human project meant to bridge the gap between Na'vi and humans. As the story progresses, you escape from this program with your fellow Na'vi, join the human resistance fighters, confront the RDA, and interact with other Na'vi clans. The interactions with their clans teach you survival skills and offer insights into what it truly means to be Na'vi. While the story aligns with expectations from what you'd expect from an Avatar franchise, the captivating open world most of the time, in my experience, overshadowed the overall plot. As about 5 or 6 hours in, I'd mostly forgotten what the overall plot was.
If I said it'll hold,
but that is okay because the gameplay in this game is absolutely fantastic. I don't even know where to start because there's so much of it. The gameplay in Frontiers of Pandora contains a plethora of mechanics that combine to create, again, one of the best sandbox experiences I've had in years. And right when you start the game, you're prompted to choose between guided or exploration modes. Guided is the traditional waypoint system for every objective, pretty much like every video game, but the exploration modes are much more reminiscent of recent Assassin's Creed games, which offers more nuanced directions for your objectives. Such as, if you're trying to find a guy, it'll say something like, he was last seen east of this lake, north, of the fallen trees, past the one that's like swept by wind or something like that. I opted for exploration mode and can definitely say it enhanced my appreciation for the act of exploring Pandora. And I definitely recommend playing on exploration mode because it gives a unique gameplay twist and mechanic towards just, navigating through the Pandora landscape. And this game has so many gameplay mechanics, like I said. There's cooking, hunting, gathering, there's destroying RDA outposts and their equipment, there's weapon, armor customization, there's skill trees, there's hacking, there's crafting, there's side quests to earn Na'vi clan favor, there's exploration challenges, open world activities such as finding plants that give you specific skills or increase health. There's Ikron customization, there's Ikron flying, there's dire horse riding. And I think that covers everything. I know that sounds like a lot, but all these mechanics seamlessly blend into one another, and dealing with all of them just kind of becomes second nature as you move throughout the game. What's great too is that the open world here, it seems like you more just stumble onto the open world activities, such as, stumbling upon plants that give you a health boost, and it comes across in a more natural way. And getting these quote collectibles is a blast thanks to the parkour style movement system. And navigating through Pandora's jungles is honestly just a lot of fun. Jumping, sliding, and climbing your way around. There's plants scattered around everywhere also that give you a speed boost, which is almost taunting or challenging you to find the fastest way to move to your destination. And like I said, it all becomes second nature as you play. And just moving from point A to point B feels like a mechanic in itself. And you might set out to cover a short distance to your next objective, only to realize 30 minutes or so has passed of you just sprinting through the woods trying to snag that health boosting plant or skill point. The game also boasts 5 skill trees, and while some offer the usual 5% damage boost, others are way more interesting, such as a skill that makes your Ikron do a barrel roll to dodge rockets. Great. Plus, you can also find special plants in the world that grant skill points, along with others that bestow unique skills. One of these unique skills was something like press B when you hit the ground to do a roll and slide to negate some fall damage. And speaking of damage, combat in this game, to me at least, really captured the challenge of facing a mech armed only with a bow and arrow. Taking down mechs in this game, or most of the enemies, requires mostly speed and agility, whether you're doing it at range or with a bow or up close by breaking the glass and yanking the driver out. If you play this game like a cover shooter, I really think that you're going to get absolutely destroyed. You have to more adapt to these enemies because they do a great job of trying to flank you and just press on you. Most regular enemies are mostly cannon fodder, but using a bow against them remains enjoyable throughout the time playing. As you dive deeper into the story, tougher enemies with more armor spice things up, like mechs with extra armor that do more damage to you, but for overall the most part, you're going to be fighting the same enemy types throughout the game, but they never got boring to me, and the weapons that you find that are Na'vi that you come across are a ton of fun to use, such as a spear thrower and a lacrosse stick that throws mines. And keep in mind that most of the ammo you use for the Na'vi weapons you have to craft yourself as well. You can also use human weapons, but they're honestly just not as cool, and considering your Na'vi can't aim down the sights and it's all about hip firing, I never found myself really using them. You can get shotguns, assault rifles, but like I said, you can't aim down the sights, so using them at range is not really a worthwhile strategy, and honestly I just kept using the Na'vi weapons because they were way more fun and fit my playstyle more. And coming into this game, I really expected for this game to be about an 80% liberating outpost, but I was very wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong there. I got lost exploring the open world, flying on my Ecron, and believe it or not, I love the cooking mechanic in this game. Yes, cooking. Crafting dishes in this game gives specific bonuses to damage, stealth, speed, etc. And I really enjoyed this because it was really easy to walk through a forest and grab different types of fruit or hunt something specifically that I knew would give me a great health boost. And taking on some outposts later in the game is very difficult, and being able to eat something that gives you, plus 50% damage while in stealth and plus 25% damage to weak spots makes accomplishing and taking on these outposts much easier. Can you finish the game without cooking? Sure, but it'll be way tougher. And speaking of these outposts that you'll be liberating or destroying, they're fairly easy to spot with their billowing smoke and the massive area around them that they've polluted. The game does a great job of showing the contrast between these polluted areas and the regular natural world, because you'll be exploring and all of a sudden the entire wood around you is dead, there's no animals, there's no ambient noise, and you can't harvest or gather any fruit or plants from that area. Liberating an outpost brings the nature back to its original beauty, animals and all, and when it comes to dealing with outposts, you can probably expect how you can go about this. You can go in guns blazing or try the stealth route. I usually went for stealth, hacking into mechanics or disabling them, or sneaking in to hack all the objectives and destroying them without getting spotted clearing the outpost. And because of the excellent parkour movement system, going through a base like John Wick style with a bow and arrow, sliding around, jumping and shooting people as you jump off the side of buildings is honestly viable, and it's a ton of fun to do. Destroying these outposts, along with freeing up the surrounding area, gives you gear and mods, for your armor, your weapons, your face paint, Ecron harnesses, and whatnot. Again, this is pretty standard for an open world RPG, but the loot here is much more immersive. So for example, you're not going to kill a mech and see it explode and then drop a blue wristband. Armor here is usually crafted or bought with spare parts or clan favor. You can find weapons and armor in crates, but it's not an everyday occurrence, and they're not, massive loot boxes here. Another way to get gear, armor, weapons, and skill points is by completing side quests. Again, you'd expect side quests from a game like this, and for the most part, some of them are typical run-of-the-mill quests, but here I found for the most part they were a lot more engaging, partly because of the exploration mechanics, and that most were multi-part quests that were not simply fetch quests. One example I can think of is a quest that asked me to find or look for a guy in the woods. You don't find him, but you find his bag, some arrows, a knife on the ground, and you get prompted to do an Arkham Batman-style investigation on it. From there, it leads you to a trail. You find that trail, you find that guy, you kill some stuff, do some other stuff, then come back. So most quests follow that, that pattern, so it's not just simple go from A to B, get thing, then go back to A. Finally, let's talk about my favorite part of the game, riding the Ecron. It is so much fun to fly around in. When you first bond with one, you choose from a list of names like Storm, Katri, and Carol, Carol, the typical Na'vi name. And flying the Ecron is such a breeze and just a joy as you soar above Pandora and take in how amazing this game looks. The controls here feel perfect, and flinging yourself off a mountain just to be saved by your Ecron swooping in really never gets old, as the music swells to make you feel awesome for just jumping off a cliff to your death but getting rescued. You can also ride dire horses, but honestly they're just not as cool, and you don't bond with them, so you have to find a new one every time you go somewhere. And it's just so much easier to call in your Ecron and fly somewhere as opposed to riding on the horse. Finally, let's talk about the audio. The audio in Frontiers of Pandora is nothing short of incredible. It's not just good, it's beautiful, it's enchanting, it's dreamy, and also has impeccable timing. There were countless moments that I would stumble upon a breathtaking vista, and the music would swell at precisely the right time, enhancing the magic of the scene and making me feel like I stumbled upon something special, when in reality it was just another beautiful vista that you saw. The soundtrack perfectly accompanies actions like launching yourself off a cliff, with the music starting to elevate the experience of the econ catching you. Even the ambient noises in the game are phenomenal. You could easily record an ambient chill video from almost anywhere in the game, and here's an example of that now. This attention to detail also extends to the weapons and explosion. They're very punchy, weighty, and every arrow shot comes with a satisfying noise that adds a visceral layer to the gameplay. The voice acting here as well is, for the most part, top-notch, and I found most of the Na'vi that you interact with do an amazing job. But the one part that didn't quite stick here were the main voice actors for me. You're given 3 options for voices, and I originally started with the male voice actor, but switched over to the female one after the male was delivering lines that felt more like they were constantly in a panic and out of breath. And the female voice actor was a lot better, but she sometimes delivered lines and it felt like she was explaining a menu at a restaurant to elderly diners that couldn't read it. But for the most part, I felt that her delivery was better than the others. And despite these minor quirks, the overall audio experience here is truly awesome and adds an extra layer of immersion to the game. Real quick, I want to give a big shout out to Ubisoft for including a left-handed mode and control scheme in the game. As somebody that uses a left-handed mouse and is left-handed and has to constantly rebind controls, this is super appreciated. Thank you. The last thing I'll touch on is performance. I have an i5 with a 3070, so nothing crazy beefy, but it's enough to get the job done. Mostly I was able to run the game with most settings at high and got a solid 30 to 40 frames per second. On medium settings was an easy 50 to 60. What you're seeing on screen right now was me attempting to run the game at ultra, and from the FPS counter you can see I'm struggling to hit 30, but that's kind of to be expected given my setup. But the fact that I can even get close is pretty great. The only other issues I encountered were some NPC clothing and armor not loading properly the textures, kind of what you see on the screen right now, and I encountered some weirdness with the HDR where the sky would be overexposed, but then a few minutes later it would go back to normal. But overall I felt the game was extremely well optimized, and performance was much better than I thought it would be given my PC setup. And honestly, this game is just an absolute triumph and a joy to play, and I am surprised as anybody that this is one of the most fun games that I've played this year. I've never been a huge fan of the Avatar franchise, but this game you can tell was so lovingly crafted and has great attention to detail and is such a love letter to this franchise, and it's just a joy to play. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go back and play this game some more. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to LV1 Gaming, follow us on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, and thanks and have a great day.